Everyone has a story to tell. Welcome to DingoTalk, where we explore the experiences that make us who we are. Here's your host, Carlo Guadagnino.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is From the Sidelines, a D3 football coaches roundtable. I'm joined this week by Coach Robertson from WPI, Coach Hammer from Bowdoin, and Coach Larsen, our returner from Carnegie Mellon. Coaches, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us, Coach.
Thanks for having us, Carl.
Absolutely, guys. Let's jump into, and the theme for this episode is the rise of high academic football in Division III. The first question: recruiting at a high academic institution. I want to make sure I get my write-up here correctly. Over the last decade, we've seen more high academic institutions competing at the highest levels of Division III football. Why is that? And that's going to be a question for everyone. So, Coach Larsen, I'm going to start with you because you're our returner, and we'll work our way around, and then we'll get into some of the other questions in this topic.
Yeah, I think you've seen the rise of it. Kids are smart, selectivity and the access that, these educations, the doors it can open for you. I think a lot of guys are really realistic that they know if they're playing at the Division III level or they're that type of recruit, they're probably not playing pro and not looking to get paid from a football standpoint. So, they know that the internships, the alumni connections, those types of things are going to matter a lot. I also just think it's national recruiting when you're able to go coast to coast at a high academic institution, and these schools value it. They want you to recruit nationally. I think that also opens up the opportunity for you to get some really exceptional players. The days of kids from Illinois only go to school in Illinois or from Texas go to Texas schools is kind of over in all levels of football. But I think in the academic space, you see it even more. You see a willingness to move and go, and naturally, because they're attracted to those byproducts that you get at the end, you get better talent. And that's when you've seen some of these teams that are high academic, do really well on the national scale and in the tournament.
Right. Coach Hammer?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with Coach Larsen. He really hit it there. I think we were talking about this with my staff the other day, and it's not just a regional game anymore. I was talking with the recruit yesterday, and I grew up in Indianapolis, and I really didn't look at a region all that much. Now, we're recruited nationwide. We have a lot of kids from the Bay Area on our team, down the Southeast, all the way in the Midwest. You name it. We got a wide receiver from Oklahoma coming in this year, coming to Brunswick, Maine. So I think these are exciting times. We're definitely recruiting nationwide. The world's a lot smaller with social media. It's easier to find kids and research them. And I think a place like Bowdoin, we're a top 5 liberal arts college, and our name recognition. When I arrived here around 2020, 2019, there wasn't a whole lot of name recognition out west, out in the Midwest. And now I feel like that's grown as recruiting's really expanded and timelines have expanded and become a lot quicker. But I think, like Ryan said, kids are looking for a great fit, the highest academics they can find with all the resources we have. And that's what we have here at Bowdoin.
And Coach Robertson.
Yeah, to follow up these guys, without a doubt, I think the world is a lot smaller. I think that, because colleges are an expensive undertaking for a family, it becomes more of a family decision. And I think when you put that in play and families are looking for the total package, you have 3 universities represented here tonight that, if you're going to go to any of our schools, it has to be something serious about the education, obviously the love of football. And if you do take a look at, the national scale, there are a lot of amazing academic universities that are competing at a very high level. And, I think that the biggest thing is they don't have to sacrifice. You can find plenty of places where it's a great football program, but maybe there's a sacrifice in education. Great education, maybe there's a sacrifice with the commitment to athletics, but I think that there are a fair number of options out there for families where at the end of the day, they do not have to sacrifice any piece of the college experience in being able to achieve the highest of levels, be able to compete at a high level as an athlete at Division III, be able to get an education that's going to set them up, for the rest of their lives. And at the end of the day, fast forward 10 or 15 years, whatever that family envisions that perfect scenario to be, for their son's life, there are universities out there that can get them from point A to point B.
Coach, I'm going to stay with you on this one. How much of your recruiting pitch is academics versus football? Or is it a blend?
Coach Hammer's talking about, his staff meeting the other day. We always have a lot of young coaches on staff, and in order to keep them grounded, it's very important for us to not only look at film, but to look at transcripts, to be honest with you. And we don't want to fall in love with anybody, for us, unless we find out that you're taking pre-calculus, that you're interested in going into, the STEM world or the business world or whatever. So without a doubt, there are some quantifiers that each of us have that we need to have from an academic perspective. And again, I think that the great thing is that, you have great institutions, you have great institutional support, you have commitments from universities that comes from the top down that supports the things that we do and allows us, to be able to go out there and find qualified student athletes who can be impactful in our program. But without a doubt, it is an absolute balance. And, we were all out at the New England Elite Camp. I'm sure I'll see these guys down at, Wesleyan tomorrow. And, to be able to go out and find these great football players, there's other things that have to go into play. And academics, and I think finding an outstanding young man that comes from a strong family, those things also go hand in hand.
Right. Coach Hammer, is it easier or harder to recruit players now than it was 5 years ago?
Well, I've been at Bowdoin over the last 5 years, so I think it's easier now that we've established ourselves as a football program from when I arrived here. So in a sense, that's made it easier. But I think as the times like I said, the world's got a lot smaller over the last 5 years, and I think families are really starting to look at what can a high academic school do for my son if this is where he can fit academically, because a lot of schools like Bowdoin were some of the schools that meet full need, and other schools I've been at really didn't meet full need. And that's always a chore, right? You're always working through the finances, and even a place like Bowdoin, you still are. But we meet full need. We don't give loans in our financial aid awards. I think we're one of the few schools that do that. So with great resources like that, it does make it very affordable for families. And I'm going through that process right now. My oldest is going to be a senior in high school, so good thing I've been doing this 26 years and have a pretty good feel for it. But so I'm seeing it as a parent as well, and it's definitely a journey. But being able to work at a school that has great resources like Bowdoin and able to do that for families, that's an easier part of the process than it has been in other institutions I've worked at. So,
right. And then Coach Larsen, has the high academic model become an advantage in D3 football?
I think in some ways, I think that, again, we're all not giving out athletic scholarships. So that makes us all even, right? Kind of alluded to it earlier. For the most part, most guys are done playing their football, once this eligibility is up. So I think that when you look at the doors that it opens, and I think Coach Hammer did a really good job of alluding to kind of like the financial aid piece. There are a lot of schools at the Division III level, and I've worked at them like he has, that might not meet full need. And so that's a huge piece of this. I mean, these schools are starting to cost $70,000, $80,000, $90,000, $100,000 a year. So meeting need, I think, is really important, because, again, that's also what's helping set people up, because they're not in, debt. And so I do think in some ways it has made it probably a little bit more equitable. I think that what we saw is, COVID really reset a lot. COVID reset a ton. It allowed people to have fifth-year seniors. It kind of allowed a lot of the high academic schools, particularly ones like us that have master's programs, look at new ways to use eligibility. with, fifth years and grad school. And so I do think that there have become some advantages there. Now, I have worked at small liberal arts schools that don't have grad programs, so that could be seen as a advantage to some and disadvantage to others. But again, I think that it's all about time on task. If you're a school that's high academic, like the three that are on here, your funnel is going to get really tight really quick. It's going to narrow your pool. You know who you're going to work with. And some may say that makes recruiting a lot easier. You're at a school that has a wider funnel. You got to work through a lot more people. And so it really, I think, is just dependent upon the staff and how they're going to go about it. And most importantly, the institutional support. What's your admission process look like? Do you have bands? Do you have slots? How are you going to get these young men in to make sure that they can take advantage of it? So I think even more than anything, that's probably the most important piece. And that's probably really specific to each school.
Right. Coach, I'm going to stay with you for this one. Are families viewing D3 differently now, especially post-COVID, than they maybe did 2019 and back?
Yeah, I don't think they have a choice either, unfortunately. Just the way the portal has operated at the Division I level, and that trickle-down effect is real. I don't care what you say, it is real. There are less high school kids getting taken by the FBS programs, the high academic FBS programs, your Vanderbilt, Duke, Rice, those types of schools, they're picking away at the Ivy Leagues and the Patriot Leagues with grad transfers or even undergrad transfers. I mean, Penn had the best offensive player in the Ivy League 2 years ago, running back, and I think he went to Georgia Tech the next year as either a sophomore or a junior. And so there is a real effect of that. I think it's a positive for us because, those big FBS high academic schools aren't taking the higher academic kids because they're able to work in the portal, which is inherently taking away from the Ivy. But the Ivy's going a lot faster, and they're starting to nail down their classes quicker. And so I do think it's helping a lot, and I think that it's getting us to the right kids quicker, which is important in any recruiting process, is how quick you can get to the right guys based on what you're looking for.
Coach Robertson, are recruits prioritizing the long-term benefit that they get from coming to a high academic school more now than maybe they did in past years?
I think that's a great question. Yeah. So, I would say you're looking at investment here. You're looking at return on investment. Families that really are aware of this and are willing to put the effort in and willing to invest in their son's education. I think it tracks well with us. Is it happening more so than it used to? I'm not sure about that. I think there's always going to be families that are chasing something that isn't academics first. They're chasing football, they're chasing NIL, whatever the case may be. So, I think that there is a balance to those things, but they're out there for us. There are families out there for us that are prioritizing, at the end of the day, if we're going to invest in our son's education and this college experience in your football program, fast forward the clock 5 years from now, what is that going to look like? And again, you have 3 schools on here that we can be very clear about the greatness of what that investment will pay off, whether it's a mid-career salary, whether it's an average starting salary, and you have some of the highest average starting salaries in the country right here with our schools. So, everything is at their fingertips. I think, families they chase what they want to chase. And I think the good thing is for our schools that the ones that wind up seriously looking and the ones that we yield, the family thought is we are okay investing in the future of our son's college experience because we know at the end of the day, this is the highest percentage of a guarantee for success for our son's future. So they're definitely out there.
And then lastly, Coach Hammer, for this topic, do you think that for the high academic schools, are we going to see NIL? And by that, I don't mean it in that obviously NIL has come to college football as a whole. My question is, with the alumni bases that the 3 schools here, like a Hopkins, some of these other high academic schools, could these alumni bases come together pull some money and say, hey, here's $100,000 or here's $200,000, and let's maybe help out somebody in some way? Or does NIL in the Division III level look more like helping with facilities, helping with travel cost, helping with gear and getting new jerseys and getting helmets and maybe things that can help in the off season where you're using different type of equipment to train? What does NIL look like when it comes to the high academic school?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both of what you said. I mean, I've had some conversations with some of our parents, of our players, and a few alums about the NIL process, and is there a way to do it in navigating through that? It really, I think it's hit at the Division III level in some smaller ways, not quite like my buddy's the D tackle coach at Michigan. Definitely not like what it's hit at the University of Michigan, right? But still, I think there will be ways to do it, and alums would be excited to invest that way. Like our alums are amazing. Like we had our one day giving, we almost raised $100,000 in 6 hours. So like our alums are very invested in it, and I think there'd be a way to do that. But I think they, in a way, they give back with all of the facilities. We just got new sleds, new pop-ups. We're getting our in-helmet player communication. All that stuff is coming through great gifts from our alums. And as much as I would love to find a way to create like an NIL collective, that's a hard thing at our level with kids because they're not here on scholarship, and you'd have to find ways to make it work. I'm always looking at models, talking with people about it because the future's coming, and that will probably be associated with it in some form or fashion over the next 5 years. And I could see it happen quicker than that. But we definitely won't want to get left behind. Trust me on that. If Wesley and Tufts, Williams start doing it, I'll be on the phone, and we're going to be working what we can do. Definitely.
Makes sense. It makes sense. Moving on to the second topic, it's retention, culture, and player fit. More than ever, we've really started to hear, the more coaches I talk to this season specifically, that fit is more important than it's ever been because of the way the locker rooms are and whatnot. My question is, what does retention look like in your programs? And Coach Robertson, we'll start with you.
Culture is everything. Culture is certainly everything to us. I think that if you have a great culture, the spin-off of that is retention, or at the very least, retention of the right people. Obviously in the recruiting process, we work really hard to find young men and their families that, share the same values of what we want our program to be. In our culture, we simplify it down to the daily habits, the focusing on the process, being a great teammate, being great in the locker room, representing our football program on and off the field the right way. So, working hard to bring in families that share that value is critically important. But, I think the culture leads to retention and development. And the great teams that we've had over the years, it's not, to be honest with you, it's not freshmen coming in and tearing it up for us. It's not sophomores. It is a senior heavy, junior heavy, experienced team that, as coaches, we want to set the standard of what we want this culture to look like. But unless you have the locker room that is completely in defense of what the culture is from a player to player perspective, you probably have some level of issue, So I think that, culture is king, and culture actually helps take care of some of those other things when it comes to, retention. And then when you're bringing a family in and having them, spend time with our players, walking around campus or whatever, that player fit, they can get a little bit of a taste, or a game day experience, get a little bit of a taste of what that culture feels like, to see if they want to be a part of it. And knock on wood, we've never had a WPI football player in the portal. I mean, it's just not what we do. Once you're here, you're here. And, player development through having a strong culture, I think means the world.
Now, this one's going to be for all three of you. How big is the portal? How big is the portal when you're talking about, as Coach Larsen and Coach Hammer alluded to, and Coach Robertson alluded to, in the sense that, the Ivies are getting their classes in a lot earlier. You have the old Pioneer League that was another collective of some high academic schools. Are those kids trickling down now to a Carnegie Mellon, a Bowdoin, a WPI? And are you guys in the portal?
I could
Larsen, we'll start.
Yeah, I was gonna say, who do you want to start?
Sorry, I blanked. So,
all good.
Coach Larsen, we'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, our approach to the portal has evolved. When I first got here, we were taking maybe 2 or 3 guys a year, and mostly they had shown interest in us. They had maybe even applied on their own. I'll fully admit, I don't think I was doing a good job of kind of what Coach Hammer alluded to. Like, I was kind of saying, no, we don't need to do it. We don't need to use the portal. We should stay away from it. We can just develop from within. Well, that is still something that other people can use. And so it's one of those things. We're not dependent. We've had 2 young men go in the portal. The 4 years I've been here, we've only lost 1. But this past year, we did actively recruit the portal more than we ever did. We had some space on the roster. And I had an honest conversation with our staff, and 6-5 last year was completely unacceptable in our program and where we've been the previous 3 years before that. And so I said it even to our team. I said, it's my job to make sure that we put together the best roster possible. And it's everyone's on the team's job to work as hard as they possibly can so that no matter what, we're going to be set up for success come November when we want to at the highest point. So we have been more active in the portal this year, particularly grad transferring because we had that opportunity. And so we do have 9 transfers coming in this year where we've been more in that 2 to 3 range. So it is quite a difference for us. I still don't think that we're going to make our whole roster in the portal. I don't think we're going to be getting 20 plus. And to Coach Robertson's point, the culture that we build starts in recruiting the right people and the right culture and developing that culture so you don't lose people. And so if we're doing that, there shouldn't be big, huge gaps in the roster where you have, 20, 30 spots available to use in the portal because your retention is so high. So I think there does need to be a little bit of a balance. And again, like, I recognize that we are fortunate to be at a place where we can do that. I know that that's not possible everywhere. So I'm not going to sit here and say it's best for everyone. And even for us, it may be different each year, but I do believe that we let our ego, and I let my ego get in the way and us you look at the portal more than we should have. And this year I feel really good about the guys we have coming in from the portal. And there were some guys that came and visited that we did not allow to come based on conversations. That goes back to fit, and that goes back to recruiting them the same way you recruit a high school senior. Are they the right fit for you?
Coach Hammer?
Mine will be pretty short and sweet. Our retention rate at Bowdoin is so high in not only in athletics, but the college itself, that very rarely we ever to get a transfer to begin with. I think I've had one during my time here, and he was great. Was an all-conference linebacker for us. One of the favorite guys I've ever coached, and he's awesome. And graduated doing incredibly well. But we just don't have spots for it, so it's really hard. Maybe once in a blue moon we'll be able to get one. But if I could, believe me, I would. And I mean, there's opportunities. Ryan and I know each other. I followed him on X now, so I see some of those transfers coming in. I'm like, yeah, that's a good. I get it. Like, I understand that process. And my last year as a head coach at Allegheny, I had some transfers come in that helped us, and we matured really quickly and had a great season. We had some defensive kids, but like Coach Larsen said, I hate using the word, but I vetted them. I knew them. Maybe I recruited them prior, had some previous relationship with them, and I knew they would be great fits in our culture there, and they helped us immediately. I mean, they started in a couple different positions and made us a little bit different and helped us get there. So if we are looking for a guy, I want to make sure he fits. Obviously, to get into Bowdoin, you're going to have to have great academics out of high school, great academics in college, and we don't have grad programs here, so he's going to need to be a younger guy. So maybe after his freshman year or sophomore year, we could get him. But I see the benefit of it. But on my side, when I recruit, we're all about player development. because we're not going to be able to go into the portal. So we're going to invest in that young man coming in as a 17, 18-year-old and help him develop. That's a big part of what we are and a big part of our culture.
And lastly, Coach Robertson.
Yeah. So the past 4 or 5 years, it's been about 1 or 2 a year for us. Most of these guys, prior recruits. We had a All-American, first team All-American punter this year for us, who was a graduate transfer from Muhlenberg that we had recruited prior. We had a quarterback transfer from Endicott College a couple years ago that we had recruited prior. We have one, young man coming in from St. A's this year. Same thing. Played high school football with my son, so we had recruited him prior. So I think the relationships are critically important. And I think for us, when you lose a kid, you've got to make sure that you handle it the right way, because you never know when those things are going to kind of circle back and come back to you. And I can't tell you, most of the transfers that we've gotten, it's because the relationship was very strong. We wished them the best, and listen, if anything changes down the road, feel free to reach out. And we're fortunate a couple of really good players over the past couple of years have done that. But again, going back to the culture thing, they have to be able to fit unequivocally into who we already are as a program. And with transfers, that is a very delicate thing, because you're introducing players for a shorter period of time that are going to be competing with guys that have been around your program for a couple of years, and you've developed them. And I think if I'm a player and somebody comes in at my position, great, love the competition, but there may be that question in the back of the head as to why coach is, deciding to do that too. So it is a very delicate thing. And I think that, the development of the players is king, like Coach Hammer said. And if you do find transfers, it is a very delicate thing where it needs to be the right fit, the right time. And they need to share the message that the team is preaching in the locker room.
It's very interesting that's the thought process. It seems that even when you're not talking about similar to the three programs that you guys are with the high academics, even your basic academic school, when they are going into the recruit or the transfer portal, it seems that it's a re-recruiting. You've already talked to this guy. He may have wanted to go and explore what that Division I or Division II school looked like. Maybe it was too far away. Maybe they just didn't like the experience. They reach back out or they hop in the portal. You're already familiar, so it's easier to recruit that person. Question on the other side, and I know you guys have all three of you, very high retention rate, but if somebody approached you, and this comes from somebody else in the NESCAC that I spoke to earlier this year, if somebody comes to you and says, I want to get into the transfer portal, and then they realize not greener on the other side, and they want to then assimilate back into the program, how would you guys approach that? How do you guys approach that? When I feel like it'd be very hard to look at as a DB, it'd be really hard to look at another safety or another corner and say, oh man, you didn't want to be here 6 months ago, but now because you're back, you want to be the guy. So I guess, Coach Robertson, we'll start with you and we'll work our way back around, and that'll kind of cap off this topic. But how do you handle if somebody comes in and wants to explore the transfer portal?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing would be the reasons. At our university, at Bowdoin, at Carnegie, you have amazing opportunities for lifelong success, from an academics perspective, from a professional perspective. So I think I would have to kind of isolate what the reason would be why they would choose to do it. And there would probably be kind of, a green light conversation, and there would be kind of a red flag conversation. If I felt that there was some level of selfishness, if I felt that there was some level of, a young man maybe thinking he's better than he is, or maybe a chip on his shoulder, whatever the case may be, that would probably be somebody, if he explored it and came back, we probably would have to have a more serious conversation to see if we wanted him to come back. But if there were other factors involved, whether it was finances or geography or, coach, I understand that I'm the number 3 at this position. I really want to play. I'm going to go out and explore something. And then they felt that, it wasn't greener pastures, then it would probably be easier to have that young man back. So for me, I would think that it would be, what's the purpose? What's the reasoning? What's your why? And then, probably taking it from there as to whether it would be a positive or a negative.
Coach Larsen?
Yeah, I won't use the young man's name, but I mentioned earlier we had 2 guys go in the portal and only have lost 1. So obviously the other guy's still with us. The situation, he wanted to transfer. I won't get too much into specifics of his rationale and reasons, but didn't get what he was looking for, and tried to come back to the team and had not participated in spring ball. And tried to reapproach me in the summer about joining the team. And I said, I'm sorry, but you voluntarily took yourself off the team by being in the portal and wanting to look elsewhere. And so I said, if you're still here in the fall semester and want to have a conversation after the season, when I have the opportunity to look at our roster and where we're at, I'm happy to do so. And so we had that conversation and, felt like he had, some humbling experience with it. And I think also had come to the realization that, the grass wasn't greener and Carnegie Mellon was the best place for him academically, athletically, socially, all around. And so I said, well, if you want to be a part of our team, you will do what we all do. You're going to be a part of winter workouts. You're going to be in spring ball, but you're not going to do any of that until you're out of the portal. So that the ball's in your court to make that decision. And he did, and I will give him a ton of credit. He, this past year, played quite a bit for us, not only on special teams, but played on defense, has had a renewed energy and attitude, and really proud, honestly, very proud of him for the way that, he's grown from it. And I'm sure in a lot of ways he wishes he was on our roster as a sophomore. But, it's part of it. And, we all make decisions, and I think what matters is how he's reacted to it and how he's moved on from it. And, but to Coach Robertson's point, I think it all goes back to the why and how you handle yourself, and there were certain aspects of how he handled it that I wasn't ready to fully close that door when he came back. But I also was going to make him have to work for the opportunity to play in a season just like the rest of his teammates. I don't think it's fair to go in the portal, not participate in off season, and then say, oh, I didn't get what I wanted, so now I just want to rejoin the team when it's time for games. That's not good for your culture. And so, may have to deal with it again at some point. I'm not sure. But at least I've got a little bit of a feel of how I'd want to handle it if it does happen again.
Right. And Coach Bowdoin or Coach Hammer at Bowdoin?
Yeah. Honestly, we haven't had it happen in Bowdoin. So when that's some opportunity for a guy who may have graduated to go to a grad program and all that, but we were trying to help him anyways. And I have one guy that is actually getting the master's playing overseas for a season. So I'm sure coming up with the new rule and everything, I'm sure a couple of our guys may want to try to do it after they're done with 4 years here at Bowdoin, maybe take that 5th year as a grad student. So I'll be happy to help them and find the best place for them. But we just haven't had to deal with it here yet. So honestly, my gut reaction would be kind of similar to the other 2 coaches, handle it about the same way that Coach Larsen did. And I think a big thing would just be what's the situation that's bringing this upon? Why would you want to leave here? Is it financial reasons? What's happening that is causing it? Or maybe you just think you're bigger than we are. And, if you're coming back, it's going to be a long talk. And I got to talk to some of his teammates, see how they feel about things, and talk to my staff, and then ultimately have to make a decision. But in the end game, I'd probably end up very similar like Coach Larsen and make him earn his way back through his commitment, showing his team that he's bought in and earn his way back onto our roster.
Right. All right, coaches, we have made it to the point we probably should introduce you now and let you introduce your programs. Talk to us about some of these guys that we should be looking for in 2026 or watching out for in 2026. Coach Hammer, I'm going to stay with you, and then we're going to work our way kind of catty corner. We're going to go Coach Hammer, Coach Robertson, and then Coach Larsen. Wrap everything up with you and get into that third topic. So, Coach Hammer, talk to us about Bowdoin.
Yeah, sure. Well, obviously, Coach Hammer from Bowdoin College. We're in Brunswick, Maine. I think I alluded to it earlier. One of the top 5 liberal arts colleges in the world. Just an amazing institution out here in Brunswick. Got a beautiful campus. It's an incredible place, and we're in the NESCAC conference, so we do have a roster limit of 84 in the NESCAC. So we recruit some great young men throughout the entire country, all the way from California, all the way down the East Coast and the Midwest, Texas, you name it. We probably got a kid from most states in the country, and we do recruit nationwide. But got great young men. Looking forward to this football season. The first guy I'll really talk about would be Angus Leary. He was a third-team All-American as a sophomore, as a DN. Angus is one of our team captains. He's going to be a tremendous football player, probably the best DN in the conference, and looking to have a great year. We're going to really build our defense around him. We return another starter who'll be a captain again as a junior, Zach Taylor, linebacker, all-conference caliber player. And then in our secondary, Ferris Collins, another returning starter, and he is an all-conference caliber defense back at free safety. He's one of those guys that can do multiple backflips, all that kind of stuff, and super athletic. But the other good news is we return 11 starters on D from last year, and all 11 will return again the following year too. So we were a pretty young team. And then the next guy I'll shout out, our kicker punter, Caden Perry. He'll be a senior, one of our few seniors that plays a big time role as a starter for us right now. And Caden is as good as it comes. Second-team all-conference punter, just a tremendous kicker and punter. Could be up for All-American honors if he keeps booing them the way I think he will. He was overseas in Florence, and now he's in New York doing an internship. So I know he's told me the other day he was punting and doing everything he can. But he's a good one. And then offensively, we started the true freshman at quarterback last year, Soren Hummel. So he'll be back for his sophomore campaign. Took over midseason when we defeated the conference champs Wesleyan, his first start. So we're looking forward to seeing him excel, and we got some really good players around him. Michael Wolfendale will be an excellent wide receiver for us as a senior, and then Ty Conley plays running back wide receiver, another senior that we think is going to be excellent on offense. So that's kind of our crew. We're excited to bring back a lot of players, and we're looking to take a big jump. I think we have a lot of players solidified in their spots, and the key for us is staying healthy. That's the big thing in the NESCAC. You can stay healthy. Our conference is tough. It's a meat grinder, and we can stay healthy. I feel we're going to have a very solid football season.
Can I, Coach Robertson, before you jump in there, can I just get all 3 of your gauge on defensive end named Angus? I mean that's got to be those jokes write themselves. That's a beefy guy that is going to play his butt off for you. So I'm sorry, you
Absolutely.
just sat there in my second there. The defensive end named Angus. The beef is there. So.
His younger brother is one of our top skill recruits coming in. His younger brother's Finnegan, so Finn Leary. So Angus and Finn. So we're excited to have both of them.
All right. Coach Robertson, tell us about WPI.
Yeah. So my name is Chris Robertson. I'm the head coach at Worcester Polytech up here in the heart of New England, Worcester, Massachusetts. I started working here back in 1999 as an assistant coach, and off and on been here for close to a quarter of a century. But WPI is one of the top STEM institutions in the country. Our average starting salaries, return on investment are among tops in the entire United States. That's where we hang our hat on in terms of the recruiting process is STEM and business. Probably the opposite of Bowdoin. We don't really talk too much about liberal arts down here in Worcester. We're kind of on the other end of the spectrum. But I'm excited about this fall. Last year we played more freshmen than I ever had before. I think we got about 15 freshman quality snaps last year, which is not a formula for a lot of wins, but we return about 18 starters on both sides of the ball. We return our kicker as well too, and really looking forward to the season. Defensively, we will be a little bit more experienced than the offense. 3 of our captains are linebackers. Carter Learned is a rising senior for us, was an all-conference linebacker with 100 tackles last year in his first year starting at linebacker. Pat Andrews plays strong safety for us, kind of the heart and soul of the defense. Again, a rising senior for us. And Mike Doherty, senior from Woburn, Massachusetts. He will be a 2-year captain for us this year as a rising senior. And those three linebackers are just absolute studs, and they anchor the front seven. And we're excited about Grant Englehart's coming back as our boundary corner. So we've got some good, solid players coming back on the defensive side. Offensively, we'll have a good quarterback battle. We've got our returner, Jack Shuck. He'll be a junior for us. He's from up in Bangor, Maine, along with sophomore Dylan Gallo. He's a local Central Mass guy. Those two guys were really neck and neck throughout the spring, so we're excited to see what the QB room is going to continue to grow into this year, as both of those guys took some quality snaps for us. In terms of skill positions, we've got one of the top tight ends, I believe, in the Northeast, Ethan Frisch. He's a rising sophomore for us, started all 10 games last year as a freshman. On the perimeter, Captain Garrett Ranieri at wide receiver. Mike Kravosky is a rising junior for us at wide receiver. We have some really talented guys on the edge, and we had a stable. We were more of a committee of running backs last year. We had a stable of guys, and Josh McCumber, Jeff Quigley, Andrew Canacor, 3 outstanding running backs that we're really excited about. And our kicker last year as a freshman did not miss an extra point all year. Nathan Napier, a Natick, Massachusetts guy. So we're excited about his continued growth too. But the NEWMAC conference is a tough conference. It is really the coolest collection. You've got schools like MIT and WPI that are at the forefront of STEM in the world. You have one of the or 2 of the service academies, and the Coast Guard Academy and the Merchant Marine Academy. You've got the oldest private military school in Norwich University. You have the premier phys ed, bio, triple option in Springfield College, who's a perennial powerhouse, along with Salve Regina and New York Maritime. So it's a pretty cool collection. And the NEWMAC, much like the NESCAC, it's a grinder. There's no weeks off in our preparations for the fall, but we're really excited to get going this August.
All right. And then Coach Larsen, tell us about Carnegie Mellon.
Yes, sir. So my name is Ryan Larsen, head football coach at Carnegie Mellon University, going into my 5th season as head coach. We are in the Centennial Conference. So a lot of schools that are located in kind of the mid-Atlantic, Eastern Pennsylvania, Maryland. Us and Johns Hopkins are probably like those 2 big national research institutions. But you got fantastic schools like F&M, Dickinson, Muhlenberg, Gettysburg, McDaniel. I mean, it is a really, really good conference. Everyone recruits nationally. And I think D3Football.com had it as the 2nd best conference in the country last year. And I can attest that, everyone's really talented and just getting better and better. From a us standpoint, academically speaking, we're the number 20th ranked university in the country, with individual programs in engineering, overall 8 in the country, business 6 in the country, computer science number 2, information systems number 1. What I'm proud of is that we have tons of players in all of those. So they're just not fancy stats. We have over 50 guys in the business school, over 40 engineers. We have guys in computer science, information systems. We have pre-med, pre-law, you name it. So our guys are really able to take advantage of the education while competing on the field. Guys, I'm really excited about coming back next year. On offense, we have multiple all-conference players coming back. Reese Kolke and Brendan McCullough are all-conference wide receivers. Nick McCullough, who's Brennan's younger brother, was a freshman, played a ton for us last year, and in all honesty is just as good as an all-conference player, but you're probably not going to get 3 from one team, which I understand. Running back-wise, Giacomo Valente, from Houston, Texas, really talented, powerful running back. Charlie Katarinsik has been a starting tackle for us the last 2 years. He was a transfer from West Virginia University and has been a 2-time all-conference player and going into his senior year. On defense, Ethan Ming at corner from the DC area has been multiple-time first-team all-conference player. DJ Johnson, our other starting corner, has been an all-conference return man as well as defensive back. And actually has played offense as well. We've played him both ways. Robbie Sturgis at linebacker had a couple pick sixes last year and really settled into a starting role as a sophomore, and really excited about him. And then up front, got a couple returning starters on the D line. Gabe Bonnet will be a senior. Amani Chisquama was an all-conference player as well. So excited about what we've got coming back. I think in the 5 spring balls I've had here in off seasons, this was our best one that we've had. So excited about our guys' excitement about the season, and we're playing a challenging schedule. We've got John Carroll week 1. We've got Barry and Georgia on the road week 3. And then we get into Centennial Conference play with 3 teams that made the tournament, and 2 others that were played in bowl games last year. So excited about the challenge ahead of us and the guys that we have to take that on.
Coach, we're going to stay with you. What trends do you see shaping D3 football moving forward?
Yeah. I mean, I'm really excited to see the expansion of the tournament. I still think we've got some serious work to do with MPI and figure it out. And, we've got Coach Hammer on here with the NESCAC now coming in to the tournament. And so that's exciting to see that expansion happen. And then now you have a league like that that's able to join the tournament, which is awesome. So I'm really excited to see kind of the trend of how the national tournament is growing. But I still think that there's some space for us to make MPI better and fix the dials a little bit, because I think the one thing that it is going to hurt is people's willingness to play out of region, people's willingness to play challenging out of conference games. I say this all the time, and I know I'm plugging us, but my AD and I agree on this. Like, we're going to play the hardest schedule we can put together financially that's reasonable. Like, flew to Chicago last year. We fly to Georgia this year. I mentioned we've got John Carroll on the schedule. I've got some really amazing games coming up in the next few years with Rowan and Hope and Randolph-Macon. So I think you need to have those games to prepare yourself for the tournament. And I also think right now, the way MPI stands, I know a lot of people just say, win 8 or 9 games and you're probably good to go. But I want to be in that top 8 of MPI. And I want to host for multiple weeks. And so that's kind of our approach. Now, if we change the dials, we'll see. And then as we look at the quality of the national tournament and how do we keep making it better, you're seeing instant replay come into effect. So I'm excited to see that nationally grow. I won't lie. I think this whole coach to player thing is a D1 rule. But it's filtered its way down to us. So it is what it is. You got to use it. Otherwise, it's a disadvantage to you. But I think it's a silly byproduct of what happened with Michigan, but whatever. So I guess the trends that I'm really looking at, aside from the tournament, is how technology is affecting all of this. And I think we got to be mindful of cost of it and what's the cost versus the quality that it's making the football better. And I think that's the key in all of this. But I am excited about an expanded tournament. I'm excited about us getting leagues like the NESCAC into the tournament. I think that all these things are good for NCAA Division III football. And hopefully with ESPN getting more and more involved, we'll see a little bit more exposure to the tournament, because I know a lot of the paywall stuff out there right now is making it really tough for people to be exposed to Division III football the way that I know we as coaches and players want to be exposed.
Right. Absolutely. Coach Hammer, has the competitive balance shifted over the last decade in Division III?
Great question. My last year at Wabash College, 2015, we lost to St. Thomas in the Elite Eight. And I think the Final Four that year definitely was probably for sure Mount Union, St. Thomas, North Central, your typical ones there. So it's great to see some new schools kind of jumping in there. You saw Cortland State win it. North Central's been there. What is it, 6 times in a row? Am I wrong there? Something like that. They've been there. Mount Union's had their runs, and so it's still kind of. And you're always going to have a Wisconsin school. I know, buddy, Coach Walker is now at Drake, but him and River Falls. Congrats to those guys, man, having a great year. And I know that was a long time coming, just from knowing him and his time there and how they built that up, dealing with Whitewater, dealing with all the other state schools in Wisconsin. That's a different animal altogether. So I think it's interesting. I think with the NESCAC finally getting our opportunity, and I will say I'm very proud of all of the NESCAC student athletes that made their voices heard. We were the only sport that was not allowed to go to the national playoffs. And obviously, NESCAC wins a lot of national titles, and it made no sense from an equity area. The football was not allowed in. So our guy who graduated, Anthony Holly, was one of those guys that he was a D lineman for us from Southern California. He was one of the guys that made his voice heard, met with our president, just did an amazing job representing Bowdoin and helping that happen. So shout out to him and the rest of the student athletes from the NESCAC, because this is going to be a great opportunity. Now, we only play a conference schedule, so I doubt anyone else will get in. So one team can get in there. I'll be anxious to see how they do. If it's Bowdoin, I'm excited. Whoever it is, it'll be an interesting time. But yeah, you're always going to have your regular powers. I know Coach Larsen's been in there with Carnegie, and you always see a Hopkins jump in there with the high academic schools. But those Wisconsin schools are an animal. North Central, I know their D coordinator. They're a great program. They just do it right. So it's going to be interesting. I think you got your regular ones, but I would love to see. I think it's been a while. Maybe Trinity from Texas, when I was playing, jumped into the national title game with the high-end academic schools. I think that may have been the last true high-end academic school that made it in to the finals. So this will be interesting to see if it can happen.
Right. And then Coach Robertson, are the high academic schools changing the national landscape?
I'm all in on that. Absolutely. If you look, Coach Hammer just said it, like, how many national championships in other sports did Tufts win this year? I don't know, but it was a lot.
A lot.
I was just out on their campus last Thursday and Friday. We were out there. The facilities that they have, there's a total commitment there. And I think, it definitely comes down to institutional commitment. And if you take these high academic universities that already have an immense commitment to the student experience, that is a starting point. And if you add in athletics to a piece of what that student experience is, then I think that without a doubt, you will continue to see these academic schools just continue to rise, because, Coach Larsen just rattled off, number one at this in the country, number two at this in the country. And, if you've got a president that's saying we want to be number one at football too, let's go, let's go. So it's not a massive jump. It literally is the right people at your institution wanting to be successful at everything. And if you can be successful at the academics, and you can back it up with facilities, and you can back it up with staffing, I think that you will continue to see these high academic universities just continue to skyrocket on a national level, not just in football. They already do it in a lot of other sports. But absolutely, I'm all in on that.
All right, coaches, we have made it to the lightning round. So there are 5 questions. There are 6 questions. Good thing that Bethany was a great comm school. I didn't take a math class there, so I'm not going to blame them. The first one, we're going to start with you, Coach Hammer. Biggest advantage, academics or culture?
I think they go hand in hand. What a cop-out answer, right? But for us, they go hand in hand. Our first program goal is academics, and that's about their experience here, which helps build our culture. So for me, they go right hand in hand and are exactly the same.
Coach Larsen, biggest challenge, recruiting or retention?
Always recruiting, just because it's always changing. There's always new things, new trends, new stuff. Retention, at the end of the day, you see those guys every day. It's the buck, the little coins you put in the bucket every day. But recruiting is always kind of a rat race, and there's a lot of stuff that you can't control. Unfortunately, retention is one of those things. It's on you.
All right. Coach Robertson, one thing you'd change tomorrow. You wake up and you got the magic wand in Division III football. What's the one thing you'd change?
Oh man, the one thing I would change, that is a hard question. I did not get that question in advance, Carlo. The one thing I would change, I am jealous of these guys because we do not meet full need. WPI is not one of those places. We are a great merit scholarship place, which they may be jealous of when it comes down to certain things. But one thing I would certainly change institutionally is I would meet full need, because it would open up a lot more opportunities for us to be able to conversations and be able to go toe to toe against some other great academic institutions for recruits.
All right, this one is for all three of you. I'm going to cut the 6 and go down to 4. So this is the fourth and final lightning round question. Most misunderstood thing about your institution, and we will stay with you, Coach Robertson, and we'll work our way back around.
Well, despite the fact that our nickname is the Engineers, I would say that probably the most misunderstood thing is we got a lot more than just engineering here too. We have a world-class business school. We have, young men that are going on to be doctors and lawyers. And, so I think that kind of that pigeonhole thought of, just being a bunch of engineers is not necessarily the case. And we are certainly a lot more than just an engineering school.
Coach Hammer?
I would say the biggest piece is right now our acceptance rate at Bowdoin College is about 6.5%, which means it's one of the hardest schools to get into in the entire country. But as I tell our recruits and our players and getting to know them, it's also one of the easiest schools to do incredibly well at because of all our resources. Everyone here is on the same page. Your professors want to get to know you. When I talk with some professors that work out about the same time I do, they love the fact that our football players are engaged. They love the fact that the student athletes, all the students here are engaged. And I think that's the big ticket. If you use your resources at Bowdoin, you're going to be incredibly successful. There's always going to be a little adversity. You're going to have to learn how to handle your time management stuff, all of that, but you will do incredibly well here because Bowdoin sets you up for success with all the people that care about you, that will engage with you. And as our football players know, it starts with us as coaches. We're here for them every day, and we want to make sure they're having the success and the path they want.
And Coach Larsen.
Yeah, there's a pretty big misconception that Carnegie Mellon is a place that you won't have any fun. That it's a really, really hard and challenging school. And one, I will say it's not going to be a cakewalk and it's not going to be easy. And that's why our guys get hired, and that's why they make so much money and do well, because they're prepared. They've been trained. But we're 3 blocks away from Pitt's campus. We're less than 10 minutes from every professional sports team in Pittsburgh. There's 6 colleges or universities with over 100,000 students within a 5-mile radius of us. This is a pretty fun place. And I can attest that our guys are constantly at Pirates games and Steeler games and dating girls from Duquesne and other schools and running around and having a great time. And so I think that that's a misconception. I think a lot of they say, oh, STEM school, engineering, all you're doing is coding, all you're doing is in a lab. It's never fun. I think that our guys do well. And I think from a football perspective, we've had a lot of fun. We went to Spain last year. We've done some winning. We've played on the national scale. We travel, nationally to play, which gives you a very Division I feeling experience when you're jumping on planes and overnighting and stuff like that. So that I would say is a big one, one that sometimes people try to use against us. And I always like to poke that we have plenty of fun here.
Well, they've never been to a home game. I've never seen the top floor of a parking garage so live as I did last year against La Crosse.
Always welcome back.
We got to the game. And we were like, oh man, we must be, because I think it was the backyard brawl. So we figured everybody was gone. We got out of the parking garage. We come out onto the field, look up, and there's just a sea of people on the top row of this parking garage having a great time, barbecuing, doing all types of stuff. Like they were having fun to me. That's all I'm going to say. All right, the final question. We've asked everybody this. This will be the last time we ask it here in 2026. What does Division III football look like 5 years from now? Coach Hammer, we'll start with you.
Well, I think the technology stuff is going to be interesting to see how it goes. At our level, we still have a student potentially working a clock or hitting the shut off on the at the 15-second clock for the in-helmet communication. It's going to be interesting to see how that goes, especially in the NESCAC this year. But over the next 5 years, I just, from playing Division III football, I wrapped up in 2000. To seeing where it is now with all the analytics and how we practice now, I'm anxious to see where it progresses to. It's all about player safety, keeping them healthy, but it's still football and it's still a hard-nosed sport. I don't know if you can make too many more changes to that. You're still going to have to work incredibly hard. But what I love is we have so much data, and I think that's only going to increase. So it's being able to use that data the right way to see how your players are developing, how they're training, to see how we can get them to their peak performance. I think over the next 5 years, that's going to be big factors. That's going to be huge, as you're seeing a lot of the trickle down for the bigger Division I levels is going to come to us, and how we put all that stuff together to only enhance the experience for our student athletes is going to be interesting over the next 5 years.
Absolutely. Coach Robertson?
Yeah, having done this for 30 years here now, I'm personally not a big fan of all of the technology stuff. And, same thing, we're getting ready to go with some of the coach to player stuff, and we got the sideline iPads and things like that. And I think, Division III football, we are seeing a trickle down effect from Division I for some of these implementations, whether it's the instant replay, whether it's the sideline tech, whether it's the green dot, whatever the case may be. I like the fact that Division III, they take their time making these decisions. I think that we don't do things rash when it comes to the D3 Management Council and things like that. At the heart of everything, regardless of what happens, Division III football will maintain itself as the purest form of college football. The student athletes that are here, they are not getting paid to play football. They are doing it because they want to get a great education, and because at the end of the day, they're not willing to stop playing something that they love so much, no matter what the cost is to them on a personal level. And, the sacrifices that they make, it's you don't get this in Division II. You don't get this in Division I. And I think that's one nice thing that will continue to stay the same for Division III. This is the purest form of college football in every sense of the word. I think in 5 years, you'll continue to see that. We do get the slow influx of some of the D1 things, but I think at the end of the day, Division III football is where it's at.
Right. Coach Larsen, good luck following that one. But
Yeah.
What do you think of Division III in 5 years from now?
Coach Robertson couldn't have hit the nail on the head any better there. I think that there's a breaking point of what's happening at the higher levels. The dam is going to break at some point. You are already hearing it from the national champion coach at Indiana last year saying things need to change. I think people are going to look back at Division III and be like, wait, we got to get back to that. It may not be perfectly like that, but we got to get back to that where it's about the student athlete. But I think in 5 years, you're going to see at least the media exposure keep growing. You're going to see more Division III football accessible to more people, whether that, the entire tournament being on ESPN Plus, but maybe more rounds being on, ESPN 1, 2, or ESPNU. I think that's going to keep expanding. And I think with that exposure, the talent level is just going to keep getting better and better and better, because like anything, when people are exposed to something, they understand it better. When they understand it better, they're more open to it. And so you're going to see the talent level rise. And when you talk about the 3 schools that are on here, as well as lots of other really, really high academic schools, and people are looking and saying, wow, I can get that education and play that level of football, and that's really, really good football. You're going to have better players coming to this level, wanting to compete at a higher level because they're seeing it. And that's going to inherently make, our game, which is Division III football, which is the most essential of what is a student athlete, that much better.
Right. All right, coaches, I want you to bear with me real quick because you guys are the last group. Coach Larsen, this is the second year in a row that you end up in the last group on this. So you're kicking off the 2026 season once again. I want to say best of luck to you guys next week as the season kicks. When this episode comes out, I want to say thank you to Matt behind the scenes doing all 7 of these episodes that we put together with all the great D3 coaches that we had come through for this season. And I really, Coach Larsen, I'll break the news. I'm getting to my second Carnegie Mellon game. I didn't know it at the time, but you and I talked earlier this week. We're going to make a trip down to Barrie and happen to look at the schedule because it coincides. It's a week before my birthday. We're going to do a vacation thing. Oh, who they playing? Carnegie Mellon. So last year I drove an hour north to Pittsburgh to watch Carnegie Mellon to open their season. And now this year I'm driving 10 hours down to Barrie to see you guys play again. So it'll be fun to see you down there. Coach Robertson and Coach Hammer, I have to make my way to Worcester, Mass and up to Maine so that we can experience, one, I got to experience an SCAC game, and two, Coach, we talk a lot. So I feel like I shouldn't just go south. Maybe we'll try to find our way up there. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time, sitting down with us on this Sunday. I don't know if it's raining where you guys are. It's been pouring out this window. My ADHD is kicking in. I'm trying not to pay attention to it. But thank you all for watching. Thank you for sticking it out with us. And to everybody let's have a hell of a 2026 season. So we'll see you next week for Dingo Talk, Chuckleheads.